Sorry, I've been away. Did I miss anything? Um, so, Panorama. I did catch the original, and I was going to talk about the ventilation, the extubation claim that they made. However, it's sort of exploded since then. So I'll go into that in a minute. There was a little thing I actually wanted to cover, and it's basically about Panorama and the BBC coverage in general. So here they've issued a retraction, a correction and clarification for this Panorama. But I want to talk about some past stories. So
this changing of position between different possible causes is leading to people arguing that the whole thing is flawed. Can you see that?
My opinion was that this baby was the victim of inflicted injury, and whether this was air into the stomach or air into the bloodstream or a combination of both, they all represent deliberate harm.
If you can't be certain of which of those two causes.
Does that matter?
okay, so when she asks that question,
Changing of position between different possible causes.
little nod, changing of position, and then he goes on to answer the question. Now, at no point in this BBC Panorama interview does Dr. Dewey Evans deny changing his position. I don't know if they think it's like 1984 and the BBC can just edit the news, change who we're at war with, whether it's Eurasia or someone else the next day, and delete all the history. But here it is from December. Expert denies he changed his mind in Letby case. So this was after the December meeting with Dr. Richard Taylor, and he said they're unsubstantiated, unfounded, and inaccurate. And as far as I can find, the BBC have never issued a correction for this. Also, the previous Panorama, I have covered this before, but I'll just bring it up again. I won't show the Panorama because there's a nice summary of it. So, more babies harmed in Letby's care, file suggests. New evidence, this is the previous Panorama, in October 24. New evidence seen by the BBC suggests that more babies in Letby's care were harmed. So what Panorama were doing is bringing in new cases. New evidence seen by Panorama shows a blood test from a third baby being cared for by Letby in November 2015 also recorded very high levels of insulin and low levels of C-peptide. Lab results indicated the insulin level was in excess of 6,945 picomoles per litre, a very high reading. Had the insulin been natural, the C-peptide level would have been between 35,000 and 70,000, but the blood test showed it was just 220. At the time, consultants on the neonatal unit assumed the insulin must be natural. Tests later revealed the baby had the baby had congenital hyperinsulinism. What are the chances? A condition where the body naturally produces too much insulin. So, if anything, this would have been exculpatory evidence. So, what? As if there wasn't enough mud thrown at Letby already in this 22 case, 24 court case, where they've bundled everything in to an easy to manage court case and thrown everything in together, thrown it all in the wash, as if that wasn't enough, because basically that's all been debunked. BBC Panorama instead tried to introduce another death, another murder, and obviously the police never charged Letby for this, and they're not going to, because it didn't happen. So that's what they done last Panorama, and it seems this Panorama they've done the same thing again with the extubations. So let's just have a little look. Thanks to Jabe here.
The current police investigation involves a second hospital. In 2012 and 2015, Letby worked briefly at Liverpool Women's Hospital. A hospital review has found that babies' breathing tubes came out 40 times more often than normal when Lucy Letby was on shift.
Ooh.
It's a finding her
Well,
supporters have questioned. We've looked into the evidence. Liverpool Women's Hospital compiled its data by looking at what are called ventilated shifts.
Now, this is where you knew it was bunk. Liverpool Women's Hospital compiled its data by looking at what it called was ventilated shifts. There's a little feature you can do on Google where you can put in, if you search before and you put a date in, 2023 I've put in, so basically before pre-Letby, before anyone mentioned this, and I've searched for the specific term ventilated shift before that date. It looks like there aren't many great matches for your search. In other words, this term was completely made up. So you know already that they've... Well, if you were going to look for dangers of something, you wouldn't need to make up these specific search terms. If you were going to look at extubations that occurred, and obviously the original worry would be if there's a spike in extubations, you need to look at the doctor who actually fitted the tubings. That would be the obviously first port of call. But you wouldn't need to introduce these crazy terms.
That's a 12-hour period
12
where
hour
a baby's
period.
been on a breathing
Why?
tube.
Why a 12-hour
There are
period?
two shifts.
Are they only ever on breathing tubes for 12 hours at a time? Why have they brought in this arbitrary figure?
Every day. So, if you have 10 ventilated babies on a unit for 5 days, you would have 100 ventilated shifts. On average, a tube came out unexpectedly in less than 1%. Lucy Letby worked around 50 shifts. The tube came out on around 20.
So they go on, and you can tell when they start bringing up these crazy charts, crazy ways of doing statistics. You know something's up, and the reason you know something's up is because they done it before with the original hummingbird chart, with doing these silly things that you shouldn't be doing. So all you really need to know, so I'm on Tried by Stats website. All you really need to know is if you apply however you're looking at the statistics for Lucy Letby. Okay, you want to come up with these crazy arbitrary figures of 12-hour ventilated shifts, and you want to look at it in this wacky way. All we need to know is if you did the same thing for any other nurse that was working at that hospital, would it for them, like they show on Tried by Stats, show that whoever, if you performed the same formula on those nurses or doctors or whoever, would it also look bad for them? That was going to be my thought on the topic. But thankfully, since then, they've had a lot of people write to them. They've issued a correction, and I think the Telegraph done a fantastic article, and actually, basically what I was going to say about looking at the data for other nurses. Dr. I think it's Jane Hutton said it was misleading not to include a comparison to other nurses in training. But yeah, I'll put a link to this article from the Telegraph, and they've basically whittled it back down to, it wasn't 40%, it's more like 4%, and again we're looking at such small numbers. Something else I wanted to talk about. People seem to be under the impression, and in fact Panorama itself was under the impression, that the police are looking into this. I've looked for articles, and I saw there was an article that Liz Hull wrote when the police said that they've submitted a full file to the CPS of new cases. Liz Hull did mention this silly figure of 40%, 40 times more, 40% of extubations, but nowhere is it stated that this is actually part of an ongoing police investigation, and we don't know what's in that full file. So this figure of 40 times more extubations, 40% as opposed to 1%, it was a throwaway figure about a year ago. It was debunked about a year ago, and Panorama have just done a massive own goal in including this in their documentary. It's just completely backfired on them, and like I say, they can't you know, as if there wasn't already enough mud thrown at the wall. Let's just, introduce some more, because the original 22, 24 cases wasn't enough. Let's accuse her of more things, even though the police haven't charged her, haven't indicated that they're going to charge her for it. It seems that, she has to have done something. She's got to have done something. Another little thing. This is behind a paywall by the Daily Mail, but I think the Telegraph have covered it as well. Bombshell new Letby papers, an astonishing revenge claim revealed how the nurse repeatedly raised alarms over doctors' blunders in the baby unit. Now a team say she became a target. So this is about Lucy Letby. Now, obviously, if you're a follower of my channel and Mark Mays' channel, which you will be, and Lucy Letby Analytics' channel, this is actually not going to be a bombshell news to you at all. I mean, we've always said we suspected that Breary had targeted her because she kept filling out these Datix reports, because she was a goody two-shoes and it made them look bad. And about 10 months ago, Mark Mays did a Freedom of Information request. Well, he must have done the Freedom of Information request more than 10 months ago, because 10 months ago he got the results back. I'll put a link to it, and basically where he was asking for the Datix reports. Well, actually, he wasn't even asking for the whole report. So I think he was just after, anything really about numbers of who's making them. Is it nurses making them? Basically, they wrote back saying, "Yeah, sorry, ongoing investigation. We're not going to tell you." But here they've got some Datix reports back that Letby had written, and that Breary had to deal with, where Letby had raised issues about, like, there was nil sodium bicarbonate on the ward, Breary being the is it neonatal lead or paediatric lead, probably neonatal lead. It would have ultimately been his responsibility, everything in that unit to be supplied. And she made various of these Datixes. But it's of course not the first time we've heard about Letby creating Datixes, because during the trial we heard how she raised the Datix for a lumen coming off of a port on, I think it was the 30th of May 2016 was the date on the Datix. But again, I think that the date on the Datix is a bit hazy, because we're not sure whether that's when it's processed or finalised rather than inputted and things like that. But she raised the Datix and said the outcome could be air embolism, and of course J.R.M. and Breary read that and ran with it from then onwards. So I'll put a link into this article. Maybe if you pause the video you could read it, but it is behind a paywall. Okay, well, that's my take on things. Sorry I couldn't give it in real time.